So Simona, the floor is yours. And thank you again for accepting our invitation. We are glad to have you here.
Thank you, Denise. Thanks a lot for inviting me to this opportunity. I have to be honest, I was not aware about the SFDR Accelerator before, but I'm very, very happy to be in contact with you all. So that's definitely a good opportunity also to share visions on this new framework that we're all facing. Just for the records, there is really bad weather also here in Milan. So it's for people in Ireland, don't feel alone because it's really weird weather also in Italy today. And so this is something we have in common, let's say, for today. But probably we're going to discover more aspects of overlaps. So I'm really, really encouraging you to drop some lines, to drop questions along the way. I won't be able to respond immediately, but we'll have like a dedicated Q&A session, which I believe is going to be probably the most also interactive, interesting part. So I've prepared some content for today. I'm going to share my screen, if I can. Sorry. So there we go. Okay. You're able to see my screen?
You can see it, yes, it's fine.
Okay, perfect. So just a little bit of the agenda for today. We're going to have a very, very brief introduction about ourselves, also JLL as a company. Moving then to the first focus on really what is the European taxonomy, so highlighting key concepts and criteria. We'll move then to a session in which we're going to dive into the benefits for startups for embracing the European taxonomy. And then we're going to move to some sector-specific criteria and examples, like what is the European taxonomy when it comes to the application to startups, some challenges and consideration. And then we're going to move to a very quick European guidance and tools we have for assessing the European taxonomy compliance, which is very useful, which is the European taxonomy compass. We're going to show it later. And then just couple words at the end of the presentation related to the JLL Foundation, which is one of the instruments JLL has to support startups, especially in the green sector. Very interesting elements we're going to present that I hope can resonate with some of you. And then we're going to finally move to the Q&A session. Couple of words about myself. My name is Simona D'Oca. I'm Italian. I'm an architect. I have more than 12 years of experience as European coordination related specifically to projects on innovation. And just recently, over the last 2 years, I joined JLL. I'm now responsible for the sustainability service delivery team here in Italy. And previous to that, I had experience also in some startups as a chief innovation officer. That was a startup mainly interested in supporting the uptake of renewable energy and renewable energy communities in Sardinia, one of the islands in Italy, and then that startup successfully completed his roadmap towards the acquisition for a bigger company. So very successful. And previous to that, I was a researcher at the Lawrence Berkeley lab in the US. So this is a little bit of my background. A couple of words about JLL. JLL is one of the leading and global real estate service consultancy firm, also investments management. We have been selected as a Fortune 500 company and the second largest as a real estate provider over the world. We have more than today, let's say more than 100,000 employees across 80 countries. And we have more than 250 years in real estate. What is really important to stress is that with this years of experience, we have gained knowledge, not only on the real estate sector, which is specifically related to the corporate world, but we really embraced a vision on sustainability, a vision on ethics that is really embedding our core services. We have services in EMEA, but also all over the world. So that's really the figures we want to share. We're trusted across many services, and we have been supported the world's biggest brands in defining their real estate pathway and also strategic alliances and sustainability pathways. As you can see here, we're not just supporting companies in real estate, but we support companies in different sectors that are interested in understanding how to reposition their real estate sector and overall their building stocks. So that's our clients spans a little bit from all the main industrial sectors. We have a lot of EMEA research capabilities, global specialists that develop in-depth research, and I really suggest you to also go and visit our website to see how our research can be applied also into our sector, into the startup boards. We're going to make some examples after in which we're going to show indeed how this could be applicable. Let's move to the real content of today's workshop. And again, this is we're not intending to have a overall comprehensive perspective on EU Taxonomy, because this word is really huge. Would like to give some key elements for you to understand in brief and to navigate for your future activities. So what is European taxonomy is? It is the European-wide classification system for sustainable activities. So this classification system defines criteria every economic activity must meet to qualify as environmental sustainable. This to be aligned with the new European Green Deal, Net Zero Carbon trajectory defined by 2050. So basically, this taxonomy, so these alignments of classification system of economic activities will play a crucial role in guiding all the business sectors towards a more sustainable development and a more sustainable and low carbon economy in the future. So just in short, why this is important. The European Taxonomy regulation is important because it's a binding legislative act. You know very well that regulations are immediately binding source of law from the European Commission that will be applied immediately and entirely across European member states. It's very different from directives, for instance, in which member states are expected to absorb directive into national law. The regulation is immediately binding for every member state. So this drives sustainable development and aims to channeling green investments in every economy of the member states. And at the same time, it is important because one of the main objectives is indeed to strengthen the market's transparency towards the sustainability disclosures, also in accordance to the corporate sustainability regulation disclosure. Why this is important for the startup tech industry? Because it provides a clear framework for identifying and promoting environmentally sustainable technologies and practice. Something that will be intelligible for every possible buyer, every future buyer, every possible future interest for the startup. And indeed, with the sustainability becoming the key focus for future investors and customers, startups definitely need to align with this European taxonomy regulation in order to demonstrate in the future the commitment of sustainability from foundation to development to operation. Another key element, who is affecting? So we have a different, we have a timeline, a roadmap for embracing the European taxonomy. Of course, the European Commission is not intending to have these applicable to everybody immediately. So it defined a roadmap. So first of all, from now until 2025, the European taxonomy regulation will apply all large public interest companies with more than 500 employees. So basically the biggest players into the green investment market. Scaling down from 2025, the scope will be extended to companies that meet at least 2 out of these 3 criteria, either having more than 250 employees or turnover more than 50 million or a balance sheet more than 25 million. So from here to 2025, if your startup will meet 2 out of these 3 criteria, you will immediately meet the European taxonomy regulation criteria. Starting from 2026, this scope will be extended to all listed SMEs, regardless of their employees' turnover and balance sheet. That's the reason why, again, we want to stress that aligning to this criteria will become more and more paramount for the tech industry that would like to transition or incorporate a sustainable practice into their core business. How do we perform an alignment with the European taxonomy? This is just a snapshot of the process, but I wanted to make an example from a sector that I personally know very well. There are then different applications in the financial sector that will apply specifically to your own case. But we will see that the European Commission provides guidance and tools to assess the process for each case. So I'm just going to make an example, and this example again will apply to different sectors. Let's imagine you're working within the real estate sector. First of all, the first step for providing an alignment with European taxonomy, we need to identify the eligible business activity that will be aligned with European taxonomy. So let's say we're working in a real estate industry. We could either apply to an acquisition and ownership, or a new construction, or production of renewable energy, development of electric vehicle, or electric charging stations, developing solutions for energy efficiency and energy performance of buildings, or developing solutions, or for instance, one-stop shop for renovating existing buildings. Once we've selected the eligible business criteria, we move to the next step. We need to prove a substantial contribution to at least one of the 6 environmental objectives. And the 6 environmental objectives are listed here. We're going to see them again. We're going to make some specific examples after. So the first one is climate change mitigation. The second is climate change adaptation. 3 is water and marine resources, 4 is circular economy, 5 is pollution prevention and control, 6 is protection, restoration, biodiversity, and ecosystems. So we have to select one, let's say, for instance, climate change mitigation, and we have to demonstrate that our activity make a substantial contribution to climate change mitigation. What to do with the other 5? We need to confirm that we're not providing significant harm to any of the other 5. So the criteria is indeed do not significant harm on the other 5. Okay. Next, we need to comply with what are called the minimum safeguards government standards. And these are elements specifically related to not breaching bills of human rights, applying to guidelines for multinational enterprises, following the United Nations guiding principles on businesses' human rights stance, and the Declaration of Fundamental Rights and Principle work. This also has to be complied with. Many of the above regulation also are only applicable at certain organization level. So it's good to mention, but it doesn't apply to everybody. And finally, we can assess either our activity is aligned with European taxonomy criteria or not. Okay, so this is the main process that every enterprise, every company, despite the size, despite the organization, say background, needs to follow. Okay. Let's go to key concepts and criteria. This is a very complex slide, but I wanted to put it here just to show you how the European taxonomy is moving around a very complex framework of corporate sustainability disclosure obligations that are rising in Europe and in UK. There is a timeline starting from 2021 arriving up to 2040 with different steps of binding obligations that are coming and popping up. So I would really also invite you to follow also national updates and regulation for what are the applicable framework at a national level. Here I just highlighted key timelines for obligation in France, in UK, in the Netherlands, for instance. And here we know that the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive will overlap with the European taxonomy for disclosure. So it's indeed a very complex framework, but again, I would suggest to keep an eye on both the European level and a member states level regulation and obligation framework timeline. So very tight, very connected, very much connected to the European taxonomy is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, so the CSRD. As we mentioned many times. What is a CSRD? This is a proposal by the European Commission to revise and strengthen the existing reporting requirements for companies regarding ESG performance. And the CSRD goes hand in hand with the European Taxonomy Alignment. Because this directive aims to harmonize the sustainability reporting, it means the way we report sustainability disclosure. And defines rules across the European Union to enhance the consistency, the comparability, the reliability of the corporate sustainability information that needs to be disclosed for the European taxonomy, for the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. The implementation of the introduction of the CSRD reflects the growing demand for standardized and reliable ESG reporting framework that will align necessarily with the European broader sustainability agenda. Some updates on the CSRD, it has been expanded in scope. The scope for in terms of more companies, specifically all large and listed companies, as well as company listed on European regulated markets. These means that the CSRD does not only apply to European-based companies, but also companies that works or are listed in European regulated markets. And we'll see these after. It defines a mandatory sustainability reporting and a set of sustainability topics that needs to be disclosed in a very regulated manner. It standardizes the reporting requirements that aligns with the Global Reporting Initiative, which is the GRI, and the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, which is another very important task force that has been created to ensure consistency, comparability, and reliability on sustainability information. Another important element is the assurance of reporting the information and the digitalization accessibility. Again, the idea is that the CSRD will promote the use of digital tools and IT systems to facilitate the reporting. You see that all these elements goes back to one key word, which is transparency. And this is also, and specifically, in order to avoid the trend of greenwashing that has been developed and has been developing over the last years in the sustainability field, whereas a lot of claims on sustainability have been made, while on the other hand, actual intangible data and reporting were really not there yet. So the scope of the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive is also to counter trend this bad habit of greenwashing of companies. Going back to who does apply, very similarly to the European taxonomy regulation, again, the CSRD supports the European taxonomy embracement by defining this framework that we described just right now. And again, it applies to the same companies we mentioned before, meeting 2 of the 3 criteria, either more than 25 million total assets, more than 50 million revenues, or more than 250 employees. Also, all the small and medium companies listed in a regulated market with the same timeline we saw for the European taxonomy. But also, this is an addition, it works and applies to parent companies of a large group in their consolidated management report. So let's say that we have a branch of a parent company of a head company that is based in Europe, and the parent company also apply and needs to report and disclose based on the CSRD. Also, third country companies with large European subsidiary branches meeting certain criteria will meet this criteria, the reporting on CSRD, okay? So you see that the European is trying to define a framework that does not only apply to Europe and try to avoid, secondary routes to avoid the compliance. So also parent companies and third country companies. Here again, a very small timeline from 2024 will apply to companies covered by the non-financial reporting requirements. So let's say a very small amount of companies with specific criteria. And then from 2025, we'll see basically will apply to the same companies that will apply for the European taxonomy. A little bit shifted in time is 2028. From 1st January 2028, it will apply to the third country companies with a net European revenue exceeding 150 million. So you see that application also is shifted in time in order to allow the various companies to digest the mechanism. Another very important regulation is the SFDR, so the Sustainable Financial Disclosure Regulation. This is a regulation established by the European Union that aims to improve transparency and standardization in sustainability disclosure in the financial sector. Again, very similar to the the Corporate Sustainability Directive. This applies to all players in the financial market. So back in time, we had obligations to disclose on financial matters. Today, we add the sustainability element on the financial disclosure. And that's, again, very important because we want the concept is that with the European Green Deal, the European Union and European Commission aims to support only activities that are financial valuable, that are financial healthy, but also in a sustainable way. So there are different elements that will be let's say deployed. But basically, the main purpose is to enable investors and consumers to take informed decisions, to take informed investment decisions, contributing to a sustainable transition by setting disclosure requirement in this investment framework. Again, the SFRD is a fundamental pillar embracing the European taxonomy and the European Sustainable Finance Agenda. And it provides, like I said, these elements of provisions that will be complemented by the delegated regulation. And these elements are fully applicable since the 1st of January 2023. So if we make a comparison with the previous corporate sustainability directive, basically the sustainability financial disclosure regulation, being a regulation immediately binding for every member state, defines an agenda for informed sustainable investment. Key elements of the SFRD. It requires financial market participants, for instance, insurance companies, asset managers, and financial advisors, to disclose information on how they integrate sustainability risks and factor in their investment decision making. And that's the first time in history in which investment in finance are also evaluated, not just because of their return on investment, but because of the ESG level. And that's the reason why the SFDR introduces these mandatory ESG disclosures that considers the E pillar, so the environmental factor, but also social and governance. So how that investment is related to the social part, the social aspects of the financial development, how that relates to the governance. And that's, again, covers new key areas for the financial world. The regulation categorizes financial products, and that's probably the main and key pillar, in 3 levels of sustainability: Article 6, Article 8, and Article 9. And these levels indicate the degree to which the sustainability character of every investment is considered. Article 6, just looking at sustainability from very far. Article 8, adopting some sustainability elements. Article 9, embracing sustainability fully. And based on the type of article the financial activity is categorized, it will require specific disclosures needs. Also, of course, the Sustainable Financial Regulation disclosure sets the guidelines on how to disclose on diverse sustainability impacts. So again, a very complex framework, but supporting the European taxonomy in its development. Okay, let's move to our next chapter, because we've been speaking about the general European taxonomy and SFRD, corporate sustainability disclosure overall in general, but what are the benefits for startups in tech industry in embracing European taxonomy, which seems to be a very complex and hard to understand framework? Well, there are different benefits. There are different aspects that needs to be considered. First of all, the alignment with European taxonomy will grant access to green financing and incentive. Exactly and specifically because the European taxonomy framework aims to encourage sustainability investments. By complying with these standards, banks are supporting the access to green financing with specific interest rate and specific incentives. So there is a lot of opportunity in that sense to make it more attractive also to investors to focus on sustainability business ventures to unlock the potential future funding opportunity. Second, improve market opportunities. Since sustainability is becoming a top priority for many business and consumers, By complying with the European taxonomy, we immediately position our tech startup as a leader in sustainability innovation. So immediately it improves our market share and opportunities to be on the forefront of so gaining this competitive advantage, accessing new customer segments. So the ones that are interested in sustainable finance. It ensures us a long-term viability. So complying with European taxonomy helps any startups, any investments, any new business. We align with the European environmental objectives that will remain for the future, including the transition to a more sustainable and low carbon economy and achieving sustainability goals. So that ensures that our business will not be disrupted by loss of opportunity, by stranding of our business, because at one point non-sustainable activities will definitely become a risky transaction, a risky investment. So that will ensure a long-term viability for our business. Very easy to say, it will increase a positive brand image. So demonstrating a commitment to sustainability will capture that market share that is interested for many reasons to sustainability. So customers will be interested, investors will be interested, but also partnerships will be fostered with that perspective. Enhance risk management. Like I said before, at one point, non-sustainable activities will be stranded, will decay in their effective business strength. So aligning with European taxonomy will allow us to gain and to enhance our risk management, how to cope with potential vulnerability in the future. And also will allow us to access expertise and guidance, because there is a pool of experts on European taxonomy that will also that will support companies and startups to prioritize needs and to also to align with this developing sustainable strategies. Okay, let's dive deep into some sector-specific criteria and examples. I'm just going to make a carousel of examples, okay? These are not, of course, envisioned to be omnicomprehensive, but I just wanted to make for you some very simple and easy to understand examples on what type of elements in the startup world could be applicable to the European taxonomy. So we mentioned that the European taxonomy has 6 environmental objectives. One of these environmental objectives needs to be selected for providing substantial criteria. All the other 5 needs to be considered for the not significant harm. Let's make an example on activities under the climate change mitigations. These are, for instance, activity within the tech industry that enables greenhouse gas emission reduction, such as development of renewable energy technologies, energy efficient hardware, software, efficient data centers, and so forth. Regarding climate change adaptation, we can embrace all the activities in the tech industry that, for instance, support climate change analytics, climate data handling, resilient infrastructure and building solutions, ecosystem restoration, climate resilience agriculture, and so forth. The third environmental objective, sustainable use and protection of water and marine resources. Under this objective fall, for instance, activities that supports water conservation technologies, marine resource monitoring conservation, sustainable fishing and aquaculture, ocean technologies, waste management solutions, for instance, for environmental and education platforms. Fourth element, transition to a circular economy. Under this environmental objectives fall, for instance, activities that support design for circularity, resource efficiency, recycling, waste management, rebranding, remanufacturing, and refurbishment. Related to the pollution and prevention and controls falls, for instance, in the category of all the activities that prevent pollution, for instance, through the development of clean technologies, waste management solutions, pollutant monitoring systems, and activities similar to that. And protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystem are, for instance, all the activities that contribute to the protection and restoration of sustainable use in ecosystem. For instance, activities that supports biodiversity conservation, sustainable agriculture, and so forth. These are just examples. Let's make a very very detailed dive deep in one of each, and I would be very curious to understand whether any of your startup falls in which of these environmental objectives. So, for instance, going to the renewable energy technologies, this could be, for instance, a startup that develop and deploy technologies that enable the generation of renewable energy. And for instance, could be, in this case, a startup developing innovative solar panels technologies that increase efficiency and reduce the cost of solar energy generation. In terms of energy efficiency solution, it could be, for instance, a startup developing a smart home automation system that optimize energy usage by adjusting heating, cooling system and conditioning systems.
Ouais, je t'envoie le lien, je t'envoie le lien. Okay.
I will put on the mute people that are not working. Okay, I can.
Thanks. And also, for instance, activities related to carbon capture and storage. And this could be the case, for instance, of a startup developing advanced carbon capture technologies that could be applied to industrial process. Again, could be, for instance, a startup in the sustainable transportation solution that provides electric vehicle or charging networks that utilize renewable energy sources, and offer smart charging solutions. I'm not just going to mention everything, but again, this is examples on what type of startups in this realm would fall into these climate change mitigation categories. On climate change adaptation, we have climate risk assessment and prediction. And could be, for instance, a startup that develops platforms that integrate climate data, satellite imagery, and AI algorithms to provide real-time climate risk assessment. Okay. Or you have the realm of resilient infrastructure and building solutions, water management conservation, ecosystem restoration, resilient agriculture, climate education awareness platforms. And I'm just going to leave there some examples for your knowledge. On sustainable use and water protection, again, we had the example of, for instance, a startup developing a water monitoring system that use sensors to measure the water quality parameters and provide real-time data to water management authorities. And this could be other examples, for instance, on marine pollution prevention, sustainable agriculture solution, ocean and coastal ecosystem monitoring, sustainable seafood traceability. Another example for transition to circular economy, resource efficient product design, for instance, a startup that develops modular smartphones that allow users to easily replicate specific components instead of replacing the entire device. Again, another example. And I'm going to leave some example here for your knowledge, also on the fourth environmental objective. On pollution and prevention and control, it could be, for instance, a startup that develops a network of IoT-based quality sensors that provide real-time data on pollution levels and alerts users to take necessary action. Just another example. And that will fall into the European Taxonomy Alignment. Just some other example here. And then last but not least, the protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystem. That could be, for instance, the case of a startup developing AI platforms that analyzes satellite imagery to monitor changes in forest cover and identify areas for target conservation intervention. Again, just some other examples, okay? I find it very useful to make these examples also for your record, so that you can just go back and see, especially related to your own application, how this could apply. Okay, some challenges in consideration. When developing this presentation, I really thought about all the possible difficulties that a startup in the tech industry could find in aligning with European taxonomy. Because the startup already has a very steep process of positioning to the market, and then also addressing the elements of aligning with European taxonomy could be another blocker. And we could see that these are, let's say, the main barriers that a typical startup could face. So, for instance, related to the access to capital, related to the regulatory compliance. How can I comply? Because I'm developing this very innovative solution, and I cannot find any regulation that would help me to understand how to define criteria and benchmark for my product. Again, there is no data availability. I'm developing something, groundbreaking innovation, and I cannot find any reference for and standards that and not transparent data for developing my own product. Because I'm developing a product which is very new, I have a very small market acceptance, and the competition is not known. It's difficult to understand also market positioning, market proposition, because also my competitors are not well known. And then because of that, the scalability and the commercial availability of my products faces challenges. Well, I found that aligning with European taxonomy could somehow help any startup in the tech industry to overcome somehow these key barriers. And how? Well, for every of these elements, we know that the European taxonomy, supported by the CSRD and the corporate sustainability reporting, will provide elements of support. Like I said before, related to the access to capital, by aligning with European taxonomy, you will be supported in accessing green financial initiatives. So you will be also supported to this access to capital in the niche of sustainability, in sustainable finance. Related to the regulatory compliance, by aligning with European taxonomy, you will find that you will find a specific sector that has a growing awareness and education, which is coming up around how to comply with this regulation. So despite the newest the novelty of your solution, you will find a very clear framework to which you will have to comply. Also, this framework, the European Taxonomy, the CRRD, the Corporate Sustainability Financial Disclosure Director, are trying to build a data collaboration platform and transparency. So you will be able to find data and comparability for disclosure. So that will also help to overcome the barrier. In terms of market acceptance, aligning with European taxonomy will support the achievement of strategic collaboration and partnership within the sustainable financial world. And that would help also to increase the market acceptance, because you will get access to a more transparent, to a more stable market, which is a sustainable market. And also scalability and commercial availability. The European Taxonomy framework will develop a continuous innovation improvement framework that is there to remain, because we see that this is a target towards 2050. So you will ensure that your product will be included in this scaling up in this continuous innovation improvement raised by the European Green Deal. I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation that we wanted to provide also some tools for and guidance. So when referring to the European taxonomy, there are key elements, key documents you have to know by heart, basically. The first one is the TEG, so the Technical Expert Group Report. And that is developed by the Sustainable Financial Group of the European Commission, that developed this, technical documents that contains many elements of knowledge related to how to disclose, what type of content needs to be disclosed, and how to align. You also find important reference to the European Taxonomy and Climate Delegated Act. It is more like legislative type of document, but it is the full type of document you are looking for, where anytime you have a specific doubt. And then also very important and useful resource is the ESMA guidelines on disclosure requirements. And that basically refers to the type of disclosure requirements I mentioned before. Probably one of the most important tool that I found on the European Taxonomy Alignment is European Taxonomy Compass. The European Taxonomy Compass, and I'm gonna click it here and see if I can share my screen. It is basically an online tool provided by the European Commission that defines for every activity which environmental criteria you will be subject to disclose, okay? So I just make an example. If I type here real estate, okay, you will find here all the business activities that I mentioned to you before. And based on the type of activity my business is interested in or is involved in, let's say, for instance, construction of new buildings, I know that I will be required to disclose mandatory on climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, and circular economy. And if I type here, basically it will explain specifically the type.
Just one notice, we just can see the EU guidance document and tools slide, so we cannot see the other.
I'm sorry.
Referring or screen that you're referring to.
I'm just gonna share again my screen because it's really important. You can see now my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is the European Taxonomy Compass, because I was sharing probably just the PowerPoint. So you see, this is an online tool. It's the European Taxonomy Navigator, and it's a extremely powerful source for you. You can filter out, these are all the sectors that are falling under the European Taxonomy Alignment. You can filter out your category, your sector. For instance, I make real estate here, and basically the tool will list all the sectors that fall under the requirement for disclosure. I can then select, for instance, the type of activity my business is involved in. Let's say, for instance, I'm into the construction business sector. I specifically construct new buildings. And then the compass is basically telling me what type of environmental criteria I must specifically comply with. So in this case, I must comply with the climate mitigation, climate adaptation, and climate and circular economy. In this case, I'm not specifically required to disclose on water prevention, pollution prevention, and biodiversity. This is a specific case. If I click here, it tells me what type of substantial contribution criteria I need to respect to validate that criteria. For instance, the primary energy demand of my new construction needs to be at least 10% lower than the threshold set for a net zero energy building, okay? Or for instance, these are the other criteria, okay? These are the do not significant harm I need to respect for the others criteria, like I mentioned to you before. And these are the minimum safeguard criteria that I have to respect. So it's very useful because for every activity, I can find the type of information I was looking for. So this is a compass. This is a navigator. It's really helping us to navigate into how to comply. Okay. I'm gonna go back to the main slide. Okay. And this is basically the end of our presentation related to the European taxonomy itself. Of course, we will have time to address questions because we still have half an hour. In this last 6 minutes we have before wrapping up with the Q&A session, I would like to introduce you to the JLL Foundation because I believe this is an extremely insightful and generous activity from JLL side. As I mentioned to you before, JLL as a company has a very broad vision around ethics and sustainability. So the JLL Foundation is a registered charity established by JLL. It operates independently and has a mission to drive lasting and positive climate impact. How? By providing capital to climate-focused startups. We select in different ways the startups we finance, and we send our support to diverse communities of entrepreneurs that are generally interested into the decarbonization of our world. We also, with the JLL Foundation, we intend to build a network of investors and co-investors that will support our foundation too. So it's not just the JLL capitals that are invested into the foundation, but we're also creating a network of capital investors that are interested in clean tech startups around the world. How do we invest into startups? We take a non-traditional approach to impact investing by providing zero interest loans. So our supports are loans that are given with a virtuous cycle, whereas the return funds reinvested will create a virtuous cycle because we reinvest in new startups. We partner with Good Machines, which is a venture studio in San Francisco that has an extensive network of startups, and basically we pull out from Good Machines the type of companies the type of startups we would like to invest in. But at the same time, there is an open platform, which is the JLL Foundation website, in which different startups can directly apply to be funded by the JLL Foundation. What is our investment lens? What is our interest? We are interested in startups with potential for scalable long-term mitigation impact on climate change. And we specifically focus on early stage companies for whom this loan is really catalytic for unlocking the matching for future fundings. So we really select startups in the phase between the seed funding and the first funding round. So we try to help them survive before the first funding round. Priorities are given to startups who often struggle to find traditional investments, for instance, due to race, to gender, or geographic location. And ideally, these are startups' business idea in connection to real estate, but not necessarily, because you will see that we really invested in a very broad range of startups in clean tech. So far, up to 2024, and you will see the full list of our startups in our Foundation JLL website. We invested in 26 startups in 14 countries. Just one startup had a defaulted loan, so it was not able to repay the loan we provided to them. And we had 4 graduates. So among all the startups, we already had 4 companies that repaid 100% their loan. What is our selection criteria? Of course, beyond mitigating greenhouse gas emission and reducing the use of fossil fuels, these innovators needs to invest into clean economy, creating green jobs, and transforming food, packaging, and agricultural systems into innovation technologies. And here we have a map of our 26 our portfolio of companies and startups. So you see there is a big presence in the United States, but also in Africa and in Europe. So in our portfolio, just the numbers, 100% of them are reducing greenhouse gas emission, 86% are making substantial impact on real estate, 52% reducing waste, 48% is focusing on conserving water, and 34 of them have a focus on social impact.